the aggressive side with things like Dreadhorde, Butcher, and Gutter Bones to apply pressure to these Wilderness Reclamation decks before they get set up. The problem is that Euro kind of stifles that, and unluckily for Jackson, Autumn actually has Stormdrath in the opening hand, but maybe not enough lands to keep.
Yeah, this hand, especially with Stomping Ground, not really going to work with those ops, but looks like a mulligan on both sides here. And in fact, a mulligan to 5 for Jackson.
Woof. A mulligan to 5 and still having to keep a 1-lander is particularly brutal. Looks like Autumn's actually going to 5 as well. Has to return 2 cards to the bottom. So... Oh, I'm sorry. I misread the prompt. I apologize. Looks like Jackson's on 6 and Autumn's going to 5.
Yeah, that is how it appears to be, but it is a 1-land 6-card hand, as you said.
Yeah, but the deck can operate on 1 mana quite easily, thanks to Gutter Bones, Witch's Oven, Cauldron Familiar, etc.
Yeah, most of the cards in hand, everything but the Midnight Reaper, are castable with 1 land. Dreadhorde Butcher, not a welcome pickup, but Gutter Bones is going to go to work. Cauldron Familiar joining the party. And Autumn, it's going to take her take Autumn a couple turns to get online. You see another Ketria Triome as the land. There's an opt. Uro will be coming down at least the front half next turn, most likely, but a little bit more time before the reclamation. And once again, Todd misses that land drop. Another copy of Claim the Firstborn.
I believe me and Autumn to be kindred spirits because... man, this reclamation deck is nutty, man. I don't know.
You were marking at the Ether Gust on top there.
Yeah, I mean it's like one of those cards where like it's so good when it's good, but it's such trash when it's bad. It's just like having a main deck a sideboard card is just so weird.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of really powerful color hosers lately. A lot of these cards kind of showing up in main decks at least as often as they show up in sideboards, and especially when we see just so much Growth Spiral, so much Uro, Ether Gust is going to show up in the main deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those like hit cards that can hit either or, but the fact that almost every single deck in the format plays one or the other means that it is rarely dead. It just so happens that Warzov Sacrifice deck is the reason why, you know.
All right, so we did just switch the perspective here. We're now looking at Jackson Todd's side of the battlefield. Resolution was not great over on Autumn's side. That's the reason that we made the change. You can see things a little bit more clearly now.
Yeah, we can still kind of make out the cards in Autumn's hand on top, but we want the gameplay to be top-notch as far as visually appealing is concerned, so thanks for bearing with us on that.
Todd has finally found that second land. Dreadhorde Butcher's going to work. Burchett's down to 12, but they have now gotten Wilderness Reclamation online. Not much doing with it. You know, there's a Blast Zone there, there's an opt in the hand. Not any big haymakers just yet, though.
Yeah, also not quite able to bring the Euro back. Maybe next turn. Thinks that Fabled Passage and this opt and maybe something they're able to find off the opt. Take a look at the top card. It's another Reclamation. It's not quite what they need right now.
Yeah, still want something powerful to do with the mana from the first. Looks like Stomping Ground, unfortunately, found under it. Todd gets to do a little bit more work with that Witch's Oven, get another point in with that Cauldron Familiar. Life total is currently 18 to 12 in Todd's favor.
All right, I know that you're supposed to say the last names. I'm really going to need you to call them Jackson.
I actually really enjoy the fact that I know that your ears are kind of perking up every time I say it.
You realize you've thrown me off twice now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've caught that. Like I have been wamboozled twice now by you saying.
This is how you learn. I'm throwing you into the fire. Last one goes off. Gutter Bones gone. Cauldron Familiar jumps right back. Witch's Oven, more importantly, taken care of by the Blast Zone.
Yeah, pretty cool little use of Blast Zone there, being able to activate it and then untap it with Wilderness Reclamation. Lets you kind of like set where you want to destroy quickly. But luckily for Autumn, they were able to Blast Zone away all the ones at Witch's Oven. Obviously very problematic for them.
Right. Dreadhorde Butcher still going to work. Third land for Todd was Fabled Passage, so Midnight Reaper can't come online just yet. We'll see if Burchett can fire off Uro on this turn. We have a Fabled Passage being sacrificed. Not enough cards for the one to escape from the graveyard, but there's one in hand to do some work, gain some life. Down to 8 already is Burchett.
Yeah, but even if that Euro comes back from the graveyard, this claim to Firstborn and even back-to-back claim to Firstborns should be enough to seal the deal because that 3 life gain is not nearly enough to stifle the 6 damage on the swing back. I think that
gain 3 take 6 is a bad swing. It's a very good point.
Yeah. Next turn, I expect if a land is drawn for Autumn to just play Midnight Reaper and Gutterbones just to get max pressure down. And even if Jackson does get hit with a Wrath effect or something like that, the Midnight Reaper should recoup all those lost cards.
At some point, you might even see Todd use Claim the Firstborn to just haste something up on his side and attack.
That's certainly true. There's actually a cool little mini combo you can do with 1 extra land. Phenar's in his cast, claim the Firstborn, give it haste, and then 1 tap, sack the Dreadhorde Butcher to look for a 0 casting cost creature to deal extra damage with its triggered ability.
Ooh. What will be nice here is the Reaper pre-combat. Dreadhorde Butcher is going to walk into a 4/4 Shark token. Maybe some signs of relief for Burchett here. Butcher can either go upstairs for 3 or finish off the Shark.
Go upstairs. Go upstairs. We got so many claim the Firstborns just hanging out.
Yeah, that is the play. Burchett down to 7.
I actually think playing the mountain there was a slight misstep from Jackson. If you notice, it actually pauses after you play it, so it gives you priority to play your claim the Firstborn. And I think that Autumn is a heads-up enough player to see that. I don't know that Autumn can really do anything about it because their hand is just 4 lands now. Mm-hmm. But it's something that strong players can really pick up on, especially on Arena, since the client does give away some small amounts of information every now and then.
Yeah, that is something you got to keep in mind. I know on Arena, I've played a lot of Arena Cube. It's always obvious when the opponent has a Stonecoil Serpent in hand. But like you said, sometimes there's nothing to do about it. Uro escapes, Burchett plays a land, but nowhere to go from there.
Yeah. All that was found is that Ketra Trium, perhaps going to try to cycle it and find something, but wants to activate the Castle of Vantress first. Growth Spiral, not really what the doctor ordered here.
Yeah, that and a land to the bottom. There's 4 mana left over for Autumn after cycling the Triome. But double claim the Firstborn, just grabbing both of these creatures. I don't know if there's anything that could be found about that.
No, I think 1 is enough to resolve. So even if the Triome finds something like an Ether Gust at this juncture, I don't think it's going to be good enough.
Right, here's the first claim on the Uro. Burchett will respond by cycling the Triome.
I guess if Autumn does find something here, it's not quite lethal.
Would you say that Catch Your Triumph is something?
It is a redraw, but that redraw has to be a 1 mana thing because of the mana restrictions here and how expensive it is to cycle. So,
and here is the second claim, this time on the Shark.
Mommy Shark, doot 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 doot.
And here is the attack. It's for 14. Burchett's at 10. Here's another cycle with Triome, but Breeding Pool off the top, that won't do anything. Jackson Todd, despite missing a second land drop for quite some time, pulls off the first win here.
Yeah, just a really strong showing from the deck, especially in game 1. Got max value out of Claim the Firstborn, which is not usually all that great in the matchup because there aren't a ton of creatures. But when you do get to take one of those big sharks from Shark Typhoon or the Euro after it's escaped, you can do some serious damage to your opponent.
It's like players are going for their sideboarding here. I believe Act of Treason was floating around, made its way into Todd's main deck. He's not quite sure. He's been waffling a little bit on the number of Claim the Firstborns, but Burchett looks like they're unwavering and leaving all the Uros in.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though Euro can get stolen and sacrificed and hit you for a little bit, it's one of those cards where, like, if you escape it and you're still at 20, the game is usually over. It doesn't matter how many times they steal it or whatever. Um, you're seeing Jackson kind of thumb over the Scorching Dragonfire as a way to exile it, but it just doesn't quite do what he needs it to do, which is problematic.
Right. See 3 Rotting Regisaurs. Those are coming in. That one, you can't Ether Gust. You can't Scorching Dragonfire.
Looks like Jackson is going for the classic side one of a bunch of different things out strategy. Doesn't really know what to cut. So 1 Gutter Bones, 1 Cauldron Familiar is it.
Right, Burchett taking a look at potential 7 on the play here. 3 tapped lands to go with 2 Growth Spirals. They'll call that good enough, and both players keep on 7. Burchett opens up on a Triome. A Temple of Malice will be where Todd will start. Scries a Stomping Ground to the top. So this time, both players going to be making their land drops. Big draw for Burchett. Shocks for a Breeding Pool. That means Growth Spiral's coming down on time. We'll see how quickly Todd can start his offense. Witch's Oven and Cauldron Familiar, both at the ready. They will both be deployed. Burchett's going to go ahead and respond with Growth Spiral. That's just going to put in a Triome. Cat is down. Todd to 19, Burchett to 17. No Wilderness Reclamation just yet, but we see Growth Spiral, a couple Scorching Dragonfires, and Shark Typhoon. It's pretty difficult to get the Dragonfire off.
Yeah, and you have to breathe a sigh of relief if you're Jackson here. Just no turn 4 Wilderness Reclamation or turn 3 after the Growth Spiral is just such a good feeling. That pass is just like you have to feel like you can still lose the game, but it's going to be significantly harder.
And you see respect for the Dragonfire from Todd there. He sacked the Familiar end step, then just brought it back on his own turn so that the Oven was untapped the whole time it was relevant.
Oh, for sure. A lot of the best players who play these Rakdos Sacrifice decks, even though they can potentially miss out on the attack damage from the Cauldron Familiar, it's much more important to make sure that Scorching Dragonfire is unable to touch it, and you just always sequence it in such a way where the Cauldron Familiar is never in play without the Witch's Oven untapped.
Here comes a Rotting Regisaur. Autumn responds with Growth Spiral. There's a Wilderness Reclamation, and Castle Vantress is put onto the battlefield.
Yeah, double Scorching Dragonfire can take care of it, though. I think Autumn's just considering using the Shark Typhoon here for 1, just to kind of cycle. And since their next turn is likely going to be eaten up by double Dragonfire Wilderness Reclamation, I think this is a fine cycle. Obviously, it feels bad, but you get that chump blocker in case worst case scenario happens.
And here's a nice replacement as another Shark Typhoon does come off the top. Burchett will opt before deploying the Wilderness Reclamation.
And that's the thing. Even though you're cycling it for low value, if you're getting some value, I mean, a 3-mana 1/1 flyer that draws a card when it enters the battlefield and has flash and is uncounterable, like that's just a pretty good card. Like you feel free to cast that one whenever.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just the upper right-hand corner, you see Shark Typhoon is this 6-mana card. Traditionally, that's your control finisher. You get 1, maybe 2 shots at it. That's just not how this card works. You basically cycle it every time, at least the overwhelming majority of the time. You just fire them off. They're just good value.
No, I mean, it was very similar with Decree of Justice when it was seeing a lot of play when it was in Standard, and even in older formats for a little while, like Extended. Just almost never hard casting it because cycling it is just so tricky and so hard to beat. Now, there are some times, especially with stuff like Fires of Invention, where hard casting it and then casting another spell immediately to make a giant shark, and then your opponent has to deal with giant shark and Shark Typhoon, and most of the time they can't do that. That's really when you're going to see it shine.
This is really interesting. And here's part of why you probably saw Burchett make just a 1/1 shark. It got hit by Claim the Firstborn. Here's an attack. Burchett cycles another copy of Shark Typhoon, just a 1/1 chump blocker for the Regisaur, leaving up mana for a Scorching Dragonfire.
Interesting.
Now the Oven sacrifices the Shark token as a Woe Strider shows up with its goat friend.
Autumn had a really tough decision there to Scorching Dragonfire the Woe Strider or to hold up the second Dragonfire to kill this Rotting Regisaur. Chose to hold on to it to make sure that they can clear it off.
Yeah, the Woe Strider is irritating. It's a sacrifice outlet, though there's already the Witch's Oven there. It does come from the graveyard, but that Regisaur, it hits hard.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and it's also a sideboard card for this matchup, specifically because it has such a high toughness and dodges a single removal spell and usually requires a double up.
Speaking of double up, here's second Wilderness Reclamation. Burchett goes for that, overplaying the front side of an Uro. Has the opportunity now to scry with Castle Vantress and then untap the lands.
Right. Now with the Woe Strider on the battlefield, though, I feel like Jackson is going to feel comfortable enough to bring back the Cauldron Familiar. It's going to expose it to double Scorching Dragonfire because the first one can target the Woe Strider and then the second one can target the Cauldron Familiar. So I'm interested to see exactly how Autumn approaches this next little sequence.
Todd's going to sacrifice the goat to the Striders. He's an agonizing remorse on top. That can stay there. Discards Strider to the Regisaur. Now fires off that agonizing remorse. That's the only card in hand. And this is the window where you see Burchett respond. It's time to use both Scorching Dragonfires. They're going at the Regisaur.
Yeah, you just got to contain this massive amount of damage. And they're going to take one of these Euros. That's the thing. 2 Wilderness Reclamations on the battlefield, though. That's effectively representing a bunch of extra scries from Castle Vantress and a bunch of extra mana. So we could see a huge turn here from Autumn if they're able to find something like an Expansion Explosion off the Euro or the cycle of the Shark Typhoon.
You might see a huge Shark. We'll see exactly how Burchett wants to play that one. We've already seen 2 copies of Claim the Firstborn, right? Or at least one.
It was 1, I believe.
Yeah,
and I think
it was 1.
There are no cards in hand and no manipulation, though.
Yeah, so the Regisaur did just get exiled. I saw Todd not use either sacrifice effect on that. Ooh, and here is a scry into Expansion Explosion.
That's a heater. Might want to save that one next turn for lethal, though.
Burchett has protected their life total pretty effectively. Still at 15 here.
Right.
14 in a second. Cauldron Familiar comes back. There's kind of a cool interaction. Todd has been stockpiling some food tokens, so the Woe Strider can sacrifice the cat, and then the food tokens can bring it back. You don't need to use the oven every time.
That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. You can tell how little I actually play with this Rakdos Sacrifice deck. That Woe Strider almost never survives when I'm playing.
That is one that you like to remove on site.
Oh, for sure. Especially with exile stuff like Scorching Dragonfire.
You see some cards going to the bottom here for Jackson Todd. Mountain, no good. Most of the creatures in the deck, no good. Noxious Grasp off the top. Not very good against Shark Token.
That's true. It is blue. The Shark Typhoon's only going to be for 4, but that is certainly big enough to eat the Woe Strider. And then next turn, maybe Euro comes back. Maybe you do like a mini Expansion Explosion. Because of all the life gain from Cauldron Familiar and the potential for more with the Witch's Oven, you can't really go for a lethal expansion next turn. So you might want to just do it for medium size and just hope that you draw into another one.
Here's a land off the top. I mean, is this not... Well, I guess you have to account for the food token. So you have 21 mana and a 4-power creature, but there's some life gain on the other side of the table.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. Like the 1 food token in play, the sacrifice to make another food token can crack both of those. It is not quite lethal, but it's probably worth going for most of it anyway.
No, just get you some value. It's hard to imagine losing after the big explosion. We'll put it that way.
Right. Which is why I suggested perhaps going Euro first, and I believe Autumn is doing exactly that. Because you can't do exactly lethal, it's better to go ahead and just establish a more firm foothold on the battlefield. Now, the Noxious Grass will kill it in response, but that's not too unfortunate, you know. Can't replay this turn, but still traded 1 for 2 or whatever.
Right. Burchett still pads the life total a little bit. You don't care about Todd gaining the life.
Right.
Opt is picked up. That'll put a stomping ground on the bottom.
Now, Burchett may also choose to not attack and not Expansion Explosion.
Yeah, the Shark stayed home, but I do think, well, maybe it's just Castle Vantress's, but it's looking like a big explosion to me.
Sure, maybe it's big explosion plus look for Brazen Borrower or some sort of piece of interaction, like another Scorching Dragonfire or 2. Maybe some sort of counterspell.
It's a pretty big explosion.
It's pretty big. It's for 10. It could have been a lot more. And I want to be clear, without all those food tokens and the double reclamation and the attack, Autumn could have done 21 points of damage, but it was just slightly short of being lethal. And because of that, Autumn chose a much more conservative route by bringing back the Euro, getting an extra land drop off of that, just developing their board state a little bit more each time.
Shark is staying home. Burchett is discarding the hand size. Let's see if Jackson Todd can deal 14 damage. Finds a land, can start escaping Woe Striders. That's a start. So facing down a lot of cards in hand now.
Now, there's not another Expansion Explosion just yet for Autumn, but they can certainly find it here. They have Opt. They can play Euro from hand or rebuy 1 from the graveyard. And there it is on top. And obviously, this Rakdos deck unable to capitalize. And we might have a game 3 here between Autumn and Jackson.
The explosion was not there. It is now. Burchett's just going to maximize game actions here. Uro will escape.
Love maximizing game actions.
In paper, you might tip the hand here, but why not run up the clock on the arena client? Or the score, rather.
Yeah, you conflated the two idioms.
Burchett is just really moving the chains here.
Yeah, Burchett really touchdowning in the goalpost, dude. Just a story of another 3-point goal.
I should not attempt any kind of sports shorthand. They will not end well for me.
Of course, this is all for naught. Now, Jackson doesn't know that there is an Expansion Explosion on the other side of things. I mean, after all, Autumn did just bring back the Euro. If there was already an expansion, Autumn likely would have already moved to Instep and done the Expansion Explosion for 1,000. As it is roughly infinity. I don't know how much it is exactly. It's more than enough by a lot.
One thing about Autumn Burchett, they really enjoy playing Magic. Now, obviously, you and I are very invested in Magic. Many people watching at home, they like Magic. But like the fact that the game is still going on, Autumn's about that. Autumn wants to escape the Euro. Autumn wants to explosion for big. Autumn wants to do it all. Those are all just cool game actions.
Nice. I want to point out that Jackson Todd's extremely my kind of person. Was just right-clicked to concede, ready to go with the Expansion Explosion, mana in the pool, just waiting for death.
You want to get ahead of Expansion Explosion because it makes them draw the cards if it resolves before you concede.
Yeah, I'll tell you this much. If you're playing against me in a tournament and you have a Fireball in your deck of any kind, and you tap all of your mana at any time and it is 100% to kill me, I will likely concede before it hits the table. So if you got a little bluff on you, if you wanna try your best to bluff Mr. Anderson, well, feel free. It'll
my
probably
goal
work.
Is to have my deck in my bag before I can see the lethal spell.
I want my sideboard unsideboarded before the hand is extended.
Like both players keeping on 7 with Jackson Todd on the play for our decider here. Both players' tournament life on the line.
Yeah. Good start here for Jackson. 2-drop into a potential Regisaur Mayhem Devil. And hit the 3rd land drop when he started with just the 2 in the opener. So nice to peel that one right off the cuff. Makes you feel a lot better about how the rest of the game might go.
Yeah, curving a 2 into a 3 is a lot better than missing your 2nd land drop. I'll tell you that much, as Rotting Regisaur shows up to the party.
Yeah, and luckily for Jackson, though, Autumn didn't have Growth Spiral in the opener, so unable to play anything much of consequence on turn 3, more than likely. And this Rotting Regisaur is going to stick and is likely going to do upwards of 7 to 14 damage. Might even just go all the way.
See some opting here. Burchett gets some opportunity to sculpt the hand, but Scorching Dragonfire, Ether Gust, these are not answers to Rotting Regisaur.
No, they're not, and that does just fill that gap in the sideboard games that this deck really needs, that aggressive bite.
Interesting here. Burchett had the opportunity to play the front side of an Uro. Is going to leave up Ether Gust / Scorching Dragonfire here. So we go back over to Jackson Todd, discards a backup Priest to the Regisaur, and deploys a Dreadhorde Butcher, looking for a big attack. Leaves the Priest Forgotten Gods at home, comes in for 8.
I really dislike that attack, and I'll tell you why. There's no way that you activate Priest of Forgotten Gods this turn. Like, almost no way. And what is the worst thing that can come down? And you're like missing out on a free point with the Priest of Forgotten Gods.
Yeah, there's a cycle, a Sharknado token comes and chump blocks Rotting Regisaur, but yeah, the Priest of Forgotten Gods not looking to be productive this turn. See a Questing Beast in Burchett's hand now. Couple options on 4th land. There's Fabled Passage or Steam Vents. Uro's still there. There's those 2 4-drops and Questing Beast, Nightback, Ambusher. A lot of options.
I'm really curious to see how Autumn navigates the rest of this game.
Fabled Passage is land number 4. With the Growth Spiral, there's kind of 3 different 2-mana spells that are all kind of dopey in Autumn's hand. Uro could let you do that and then have one of them. I don't know. Everything seems so contingent on what happens next.
I mean, I actually just kind of love casting Questing Beast and forcing the Priest of Forgotten Gods to go off. Maybe that's a disaster waiting to happen, because all it takes is just like one more creature out of the hand to really put you in the dirt. But I mean, you got to try to do something about this Rotting Regisaur, man. It's going to tear you up.
Right, Autumn lands on Uro, finds Blast Zone. Either that or Steam Vents could be put in off of Uro. Steam Vents is the choice. That's the only one that could cast Growth Spiral if it came to it.
Now, if I were Autumn, I think I would probably main phase the Scorching Dragonfire on the Dreadhorde Butcher, or maybe upkeep it. Maybe you can just wait to respond to any creature being played.
Well, here's an Agonizing Remorse. If you care about it, this is a good one to respond to.
Yeah, Ether Gust or Dragonfire on the Dreadhorde Butcher seems reasonable. I think you have to interact with the board right now in some meaningful way. I think just casting Growth Spiral here is a pretty big mistake.
Here goes Fabled Passage. We'll see what the response is.
Unlike Duress, Remorse can hit creatures too, and it's very strong against Euros because it can also just take them when they're in the graveyard. But here I think just like taking Questing Beast as like the only thing that can trade with a Rotting Regisaur just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I buy that. Todd's mulling it over.
Yeah. Follow that up with Fiend Artisan. You get to use all your mana. Your hand is basically clean for your Rotting Regisaur.
Ether Gust did put Dreadhorde Butcher onto the top of Todd's deck, so that one will be the draw next turn.
Wow. Okay. takes the Nightpack Ambusher because it could be a way to generate a bunch of extra bodies that chump block forever. And I mean, I guess the Priest combined with the Dreadhorde Butcher next turn can chew up the Questing Beast. So if that's all that is played, but the Scorching Dragonfire plus Questing Beast solves that issue quite nicely.
Yeah, Fiend Artisan showed up, but we're going back Burchett's way now. Burchett looking at casting Scorching Dragonfire. It's kind of interesting. You could go for the Priest Forgotten Gods itself, or you could go for the Fiend Artisan. That means the Priest has to sacrifice the Regisaur.
Yeah, and with perfect information and no cards in hand, I feel like this is a fine play because the Fiend Artisan is only going to get bigger and it's only going to get more annoying. But if you deal with the Priest of Forgotten Gods, you handle a problem before it actually starts getting problematic. Not next turn, but the turn after, perhaps.
Maybe by that point, on the Artisan.
Yeah. Tagging the Artisan with a Scorched Dragonfire makes a lot of sense. And now you have to wonder if you're Jackson, like how many points of damage did you actually miss with this Priest of Forgotten Gods? That's at least 2 attacks now that haven't gone through that were not really that vulnerable to Shark Typhoon, like ever. I feel like there's perhaps just a lot of lost value there.
I mean, Burchett's going up to 15. I don't know if a couple 3 points is a real question here, so much as maybe a card that's not Priest of Forgotten Gods in the sideboard plan could have been more impactful.
Sure.
Here comes the Dreadhorde Butcher. Todd's going to think about things pre-combat.
I mean, the way the Autumn navigated this game, it was very, very strongly. Like, I think that there's not a whole lot Jackson could have done differently to give himself a chance to actually win the game. The Regisaur slowly chewed his hand away, but it was one of the easiest ways for him to potentially steal the game on the play. But unfortunately for them, though, this Euro is just extremely problematic.
Yeah, navigation from Mythic Champion on Burchett has been very smooth this game. They have had a ton of options kind of at every point starting from turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
You see Rotting Regisaur and Dreadhorde Butcher attacking into Uro. Imagine Burchett kind of doing math on how quickly cards in the graveyard fill up to escape Uro another time.
I'm kind of just down to block the Dreadhorde Butcher. You can take 7, you go to 8. That's gonna leave it's gonna leave Jackson in top deck mode to find another creature. And if another creature doesn't show up or an answer to the Euro doesn't show up, that is a disaster. Like a block on the Dreadhorde Butcher might actually force Jackson to activate the Priest of Forgotten Gods right now, which ultimately deals 0 damage.
Burchett jumps in front of the Butcher. Regisaur connects. The trigger puts Burchett to 7, but Uro is going to turn that number around fairly quickly. And as we were talking about before, Questing Beast is just a vigilant, death-touching, hasting attacker. The Regisaur is not really a problem anymore.
Yeah, I feel like this attack for 10 is also a pretty big deal.
Yeah, half of your opponent's life total. That's a solid attack.
Yeah. I mean, things just turn around so quickly with this Team of Reclamation deck because so many cards are powerful. They're just really mana hungry, right? And so when you have the mana, thanks to Wilderness Reclamation or just Growth Spiraling and Euroing, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your cards all just become turbo powered as the game goes.
Burchett fire off an opt. There's another Uro there. That's getting scried to the bottom. Island shows up to join a couple of Growth Spirals. Not much else to be doing, but Burchett in a pretty commanding position on the battlefield.
Absolutely. And there's another land, and there's no Woestrider in the graveyard. That if it's not over next turn, it is extremely close.
Yeah, Fable passes off the top. That's no help. You don't see anything waiting to jump out of the graveyard. Not this game. No Wostriders to be seen. It is looking more and more like we will be seeing Autumn Burchett in the top 8 of our first championship qualifier.
Yeah, and of course, qualifying for the big show. We're going to be having that in a few months. Or is it next month? I'm bad with time nowadays.
It's a little over a month away.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a week off on qualifiers, and then we have 3 weeks in a row, is my understanding, followed by the championship.
Awesome. And we're running those qualifiers like every day. So, and like multiple a day.
Many of them. Today, in fact, you could be playing one.
Good.
You want your shot at some of our other championship qualifiers, your share of the $10,000 prize purse for those, your shot at the $2,000 cash prize in the championship. You can get details for that over on StarCityGames.com. Tournaments run through MTG Melee.
Yeah, they're really well run too. MTG Melee is an excellent program. I am not sponsored by them, but Jason Flafford, the creator, is a friend of mine, and he's very smart.
Burrow making things even closer to over. Burchett is attacking Todd down to 3. Some card draw here, another Uro, and there is Explosion. It can't be cast just yet. Odds were long before that card does just end the game. Claim the firstborn off the top. With life totals a bit different, that could be a big draw, but there's no second creature for the priest is kind of the big deal. If the Uro draws one.
Yeah, the Euro can attack and draw a creature, and then the priest can sack the Euro and the other creature and draw into Agonizing Remorse. I think Autumn is contemplating the expansion on the Claim the Firstborn to steal the priest in response. Because if that happens, then Autumn can't lose the Euro, but it can just be unshackled from the graveyard. And that's a Witch's Oven. That should be...
Witch's Oven will not do it. Todd deploys it. Everything is face up as we're about to head back Autumn Burchett's way. They'll cast a Growth Spiral. Storm's Wrath, that's whatever. The Uro and the Explosion, all Autumn needs.
Well, the Witch's Oven does give extra food tokens, but not enough mana to use them. 9 life is what we're sitting at here, and 1 Expansion Explosion is not quite enough. So we might just play a couple more turns. That was one of the better sequences Jackson could have to maybe find a way to claw back into the game.
Burchett was at the ready to escape the Uro again, so Todd is going to need some nice peels from here and does not have much time.
Well,
or
you're just dead.
That Uro, it draws a card, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Wilderness Reclamation. Here's 3 floating and a whole bunch of lands on tapping. Was that 11 of them?
Yeah, it's either just enough or 1 over. I couldn't tell quickly enough. I stopped counting when it was.
My estimation is 1 over. I'm going with 1 over.
All right, let's see it. Autumn Expansion Explosion for 10. That'll do it. Autumn Burchett cashing their ticket to the top 8 here at the inaugural championship qualifier here on the SCG Tour Online.
That means a 6-1 record. That means 100 SCG points.